everyone. I am J.E. Prassi, speculative fiction author and the writer of the Malfunction Trilogy and the Raven Tree Society. I am very rarely on here these days. Honestly, pretty much the only reason why I'm on here right now is because a recent debate in the book community online has sparked my interest, but maybe more accurately because I'm in the final edits of the last book of my trilogy and I'm trying to avoid it at all costs. So that's probably more realistically why I'm here. A fair warning, in case you haven't watched the rest of my videos, my very affectionate, half-naked, because she's allergic to everything, cat is probably going to jump in here and be irritating. There is a storm going on outside, and my husband is in back gaming. So the quality of the video is not going to be tops. I'm going to just let you guys know that right now. That's one of the reasons why I'm going live, because like putting the effort into trying to edit it properly when I don't even have the proper tools isn't really worth it to me, especially because I don't really have a lot of a viewership here. So if you're sitting down and watching me despite all these issues, thank you. I really appreciate you. Hopefully I have something valid to say and something to add to the conversation. So I want to start out by saying, so this recent debate has been going. It's resurfaced a few times. This is not the first time since I've joined the bookish community that this topic has come up, or that I've spoken to it, though usually I keep that on my blog. And that's the topic of should authors interact with reviewers, and if so, how? And then also kind of the concept of how much, like I said, there's the cat. How much should we expect reviewers to interpret or respect the authorial intent when they're reading, and not just reviewers, but readers in general. So first I want to let you guys know, there goes the cat. First, I want to let you guys know that I'm not going to speak to where the current controversy is coming from. I respect a lot of the people who are having this debate right now. I respect them deeply. Some of the YouTubers who are involved in this are people who have had great interactions with me, and I love speaking to them. And Abigail Hayes is here. Hi, Abigail. She is one of those who hang out on my Discord. And here's the cat again. This is going to get irritating, but she just very much wants affection while I'm sitting here. I don't know why. Never mind. She always wants affection. Anyway, so I respect the people in the community who are having this conversation. I don't want to name names. I don't want to talk about the controversy. If you're here watching, it's either because you follow me, and you can ask me personally on Discord or through social media, or you are already following the controversy, in which case, you know, there's a lot of other places to go where you can hear about what's happening. I just kind of wanted to give my thoughts, my insights as an indie author, for kind of how I handle things and how I've kind of come to view things as an author, and as I occasionally do reviews, like on Goodreads and stuff like that. I'm an avid reader, of course. So yes, here are kind of my perspectives on this. So kind of the first thing I wanted to know, I have my little notes here. Kind of the first thing I wanted to know and talk about is the idea that the internet is really new, especially when we compare it to books and to entertainment in general. So when we're talking about reviewer spaces and authorial spaces and what's appropriate and where they should blend and mix, like this is still a matter of opinions. A lot of these spaces are still really new. Some of these spaces are developed with the intention of creating dialogue and have become reviewer spaces specifically. Like if I'm talking about Goodreads, for instance, it's become a reviewer space specifically, but it was created with the intent for dialogue between the community. Some of these spaces have nothing to do with books. So if we talk about BookTube, you know, it's on a YouTube space. Pretty much anyone can stumble across those, and they're, you know, because it's a social media, they're free to leave their comments, and you know, if you go into the comments, like there's the trope, you go into the comments in YouTube, and you're probably going to get some stinkers. And there are some places where it's really clear, like if an author is going, for instance, onto a reviewer's site, where a reviewer is reviewing their book and leaving that review for other readers and makes it very specific and clear why they're doing that, and has not tagged the author and has not sent the author that review in any way, shape, or form, that's inappropriate. Or if a reviewer, for instance, is coming into, perhaps, like, for instance, I have a Discord, coming into my Discord and just blowing it up with how much they hate my book, I'm probably going to ask them to leave, because that kind of negativity is just not necessary. Or if a reviewer is sending me emails constantly about how much they hate my book, which has thankfully never happened yet. My reviewers and readers have always been very respectful, and I've never had a negative interaction like that. But I do know it happens, and I've heard of it happening. So if that were to happen to me, like, to be honest, I would block the email, or I would ignore the person who's emailing me, because it's hard enough to be an author. I don't need that. So some of these lines are really clear, and a lot of them we're still kind of figuring out. So Abigail Hayes has some notes. She says she's late to live. It wasn't planned. We're all late. So she's a little bit confused what I'm talking about. I'm talking about whether or not readers should take into context a author's intent when they're reading and reviewing a book, and then also whether authors should have the ability to comment on and interact with reviewers, specifically in reviewer spaces like on BookTube and on Goodreads and stuff like that. So yes, so because the internet is so new and because it's complicated things so much, and all of a sudden we have the ability to, just shoot off an email to an author, whereas, say back in Dickinson's time, you'd have to know where to send a letter, or you'd have to somehow meet them on the street or go to an event. You don't need to be so intentional anymore. So you can destroy someone's reputation on the internet. And if an author is not allowed to speak to that at all, I know a lot of authors who have a very real fear that a reviewer will attack them personally and make claims about them personally because of what they've read in their book and what they interpret about them as a person, and that they cannot defend themselves, because if they do, then it's viewed as them inserting themselves and using their power against a certain person. And I've seen both sides. I've seen authors use their power to destroy reviewers and attack reviewers, or even just readers who have interacted with them. And I've also seen readers who have done a lot of damage to authors by their interpretations of books without ever asking the author, without ever interacting with the author and trying to figure out what the author really meant, and without giving the author any room for grace. If you are, for instance, an author without a disability who's writing a disabled character, I was very lucky to have some people step in and be like, hey, look, you are not being fair to disabled people in this depiction. Here is a better way to write it, or perhaps you should talk to some people with disabilities. And I was able to go and change some of those things. But I know, because I have written disabled characters in my science fiction specifically, because I have disabled characters in there, even though I've done my best to research and to ask questions and talk to people, I do know that I probably have made mistakes in there. And I would love for people to point those out in a respectful way, but I would also hate for someone to come and attack me personally and say something about me personally without discussing it with me first. So I can say, from an author perspective, there's fear of that you are not able to speak up and defend yourself even on your own platforms without being attacked for that. But I also know, as a reviewer and as someone who's interacted with an author as a reader, that it is also really scary to be able to express yourself and to be able to say, I read your book, especially if you don't love it. If, for instance, now, because I interact with so many authors and I'm reading so many authors' books because I want to support them, oftentimes I won't, my cat's coming back up here, oftentimes I won't put on Goodreads or make it known that I'm reading that book at the time. I used to, and now I don't, because it just makes it uncomfortable for me, because if I don't enjoy the book, then I don't know how to review it in a respectful way in which I'm not damaging their reputation or the book's reputation, and in which I'm not using my subjective idea of quality as an author. And I don't know how to fairly review that. And sometimes I just don't review a book, or I don't leave a star rating, not because I don't want to appreciate and support that author, but because I don't know if I can do that in a fair way. So Abigail Hayes has a few more comments. She says, thanks for clearing that up. She could see where the confusion would be. She says, both sides have to operate with a certain level of morality and tact. And that's very true. And I think that was one of my biggest points, is that we need to give each other grace. We need to give each other the grace to be able to correct our mistakes. And sometimes it takes a little bit more than a few videos that are not sent to a specific person, or a few comments. Some people need a little bit more time to get a grasp on what's going on, especially because as an author, I can speak as an author, we have to spend so much time closing ourselves off to reviews because it's easy to take those personal. So we have to take so much care to make sure that we're not allowing someone's subjective view of our book. If they say, these characters suck, or your dialogue's horrible, or, you can take it really personally. So you have to be so careful to kind of cut off everyone else's opinion to be able to continue in a creative career to begin with. It can be really hard to humble yourself and recognize when someone is giving a valid critique or valid concern. And it's a very difficult balance to take, because on the one hand, you want to be able to interact well with your readers and provide quality work that they'll enjoy. And on the other side, if you just took it all into account, you wouldn't be able to ever do anything again. So yeah, those are my kind of starting thoughts. Abigail had another comment. Here she says, it's become so easy to step on someone's toes, and we need to get back to the idea that it's not only okay to disagree with someone, but also that we can do it in a respectful way, like you said. Yes. It's especially on the internet, because it's so easy to go back and pick apart what people say, and you can pull out little bits and videos and clips. We have to understand that the internet is new, and that people make mistakes, a lot of mistakes. And that doesn't necessarily mean that they're trying to hurt people. It may just mean that you need to have a respectful conversation with them, or even just give them room to learn in their own time. And that goes both directions, for authors towards reviewers, and reviewers towards authors. So I had notes on authorial intent. Yes, I just started this. For author intent. So when I come and approach a book as an author, I like a lot of detail. I like a lot of interior thought. I love world building. But I approach it knowing that no matter how much I describe something, no matter how much I create a character, I'm only ever going to be able to go halfway. And that's because I cannot implant my ideas perfectly into another person's head. So even if I had a video, and even if I was making a movie, there's still some level in which the viewer or the reader or the consumer is going to be taking those ideas through their own lens and their own concepts and their own experiences, and they're going to be taking that media in differently than you as the author or the creator are putting it out. And this has to do with any art form. So you can attempt your best to make it clear what you're trying to say, but sometimes it's going to lose a little bit in between. And as an author, I actually love that, because I believe that we're stronger together. And I believe that my own view of my work is imperfect and limited, because I, as a human being, am imperfect and limited. So when my reader takes what I've created and they create their own interpretation, they fill it out with their own imagination and with their own experiences. Like, for instance, if I was, so let's go back to disability. So I have a character who's a deaf character, and I don't write from his POV. He's a side character. And I've interacted with people in the deaf community before, and I tried to do my research. But a reader who, for instance, picks that up and has perhaps a sibling who is deaf, or a friend who is deaf, who knows sign language, when they read those things, they're going to be reading in their experience and filling that out so much more beautifully than I ever could. And so I love the idea that this is a joint effort of, I'm not creating a world and inviting people into it. I'm inviting someone to create a world with me, if that makes sense. Now, that's my perspective. And I apologize for my cat. She got outside and she's upset because I'm not with her, apparently. So yes, that's how I view the creative process. Now, because of that, there's a lot of subjectivity there, which means that as a reader is taking it in, they may interpret things a certain way that the author didn't intend. Or an author may think that they are making a very clear point and saying things very clearly. And I have to deal with this with my critique partners all the time, where they're like, I'm not sure what you're trying to say here. Or I get that you're trying to do this, but it reads this way. Or for instance, there's multiple points, like I would write a violent scene and it would come across a different way to a different reader to a critique partner or a reader who hasn't had the same experiences as me. Or for instance, I'll give a very good, you know what, that's spoilers. I can't give that one. But I think I made my point hopefully well enough, that because human beings are subjective and it takes both to create this shared universe for us to inhabit together as the creator and the consumer, because it takes both, there could be a flaw with either side or with a translation of them. And it can be very easy to point fingers and say, oh, it's the author's fault because the author is a bad person, or oh, it's the reader's fault because the reader did not put in the effort to understand the author, or they're being too subjective. And it can be very easy to point fingers instead of recognizing that this is a collaboration between the creator and the pair. The platypus had something to say. Between the creator and the reader, this is a collaborative effort between them, and you are in essence sharing a mind space. It's like telepathy, and you're not going to always be able to point out where the flaw is. So I think in that, when we approach authorial intent in that way, we need to understand that yes, to some level, once a book is published and it's out in the world, it no longer belongs to the author. It is now the readers as well. But because of that idea, this death of the author idea and this intent, authorial intent, it can create a negative space in which the author and the reader become almost enemies in a war battling for this creative piece, instead of being a community creating this creative piece together. The creator puts out their idea of it, and the reader is finishing and completing that by taking that into their mind and their experience. So if we view it as a collaboration, as a pact between reader and creator, it's a much more fulfilling process, and we need to give each other grace for that. Just like if you were at work and you're doing a project together at work, like you bring that to your boss and you say, we did this piece, we've worked together on this. Your boss isn't going to sit there and pick apart, this so-and-so did this and so-and-so did this and so-and-so needs a raise and so-and-so needs to be fired. If it's a collaborative piece, it's, a collaborative piece. So we need to give each other grace in that. And that's not to say that there are times where it's definitely clear that the author was incorrect, or definitely clear that the author was racist. Like if you read Around the World in 80 Days, which is a very interesting book, there is a lot of racism in there. And, it's a, product of his times and all that kind of stuff. But we can never pick up that book and be like, no, what he was really trying to say when he said that the Indian woman was beautiful because she had European features. What he was really trying to say is that Indian people are beautiful. That's not what you no matter which way the reader takes that into their perception, the authorial intent is very clear. So I think because of that, the author does bear a weight of responsibility to be as clear as possible and as thoughtful as possible to their readers, to treat their readers well. So we need to be gentle with our readers. We need to be understanding of our readers, that our readers are coming from a different mindset than us. And we can't expect readers to understand what we're trying to say if we don't clearly say it. We can't expect readers to shape their thought process to ours in order to understand it. And if they get it, in our view, wrong, it's not necessarily wrong, because, like I said, it's perception, it's art, we're creating it together. But the fault may be yours for not being clear enough. So try to do it better next time. And I think where some authors really fall into a dangerous place with this is with shock value. Like, if you're just trying to shock your readers, you're just trying to like kill someone just so you get that shock factor, or you're trying to like make an extra gory or whatever scene just because you want to shock and disturb your readers. Like, why would you want to do that to another person? Those are tools to create a good experience and a clear message for your readers. And if you want to leave an impact in the world for your readers as authors, like, please consider, do you want your impact in the world to be, wow, this person made a really gory book? I have both my cat and my husband going, this is great. Speaking of collaborative processes, Pidge, come on, Kitty. So, yeah, as authors, please think about the impact that your creativity is going to leave in the world behind you, and think about how that's going to impact your readers, because that's really, it's really important. Okay, final thought on authorial intent before I move on. And I should move on eventually, because, like I said, this is just me avoiding actually finishing my book. Great author cliche there. So my final thought is that authors can and should be clear about their intent and their messages and their themes, because we have the internet and you can find everyone else's opinions about what you're trying to say. It's not like the old days where you put out something and people discuss what the reader or what the author is trying to say. It's not like that. So if you are silent, then other people are going to define your book for you and define your message for you. And I'm saying that within reason. Like, you don't want to, as an author, you don't want to respond to criticism and critique, but I very often put out blogs or put in social media posts or put in my newsletters things like, I wrote this because I was inspired by this, or I wrote this to speak to this particular issue, or I wrote this because this book left this impact on me and I was trying to recreate that. My entire author brand is exploratory fiction, and that's the idea that I'm not trying to tell you how to think, or tell you what to think, but how to think. In that I'm taking an idea or a concept and I'm looking at all the different places in it and saying, what's it like to approach it from this direction? What's it like to approach it from just this direction? So I try to give different perspectives, and most of the time I'm exploring that idea myself. So for instance, like if I'm taking Eyes of the Bardcast, which was a short story in the Of Myth and Monsters PFW anthology in 2020, that was me exploring the idea of death. And how death is both negative and sorrowful, and yet powerfully good and encouraging, depending on how you approach it and how you look at it and what time in life it affects you. And yeah, so I definitely don't have an answer on that. I'm not going to come and say, oh, death is a good thing, or death is a bad thing, or death means this, or death means that. That was just me exploring that concept. So I like to be clear on my own personal spaces, what I intended with a specific thing. But I'm not going to go back, like if I find a review that says, I think the Bardcast is representative of plague because 2020 had COVID, right? There's not a review like that, otherwise it wouldn't address it. So if someone came and did that, I wouldn't go and make a, blog post, 5 reasons why the Bardcast is not depicting COVID, right? But I am clear. Like I told people, by the way, broadcast is about a plague, and it happened. It came out in 2020, but I got the idea before 2020. Like, I've said that because I knew that that would be a thought process that people might have when reading my book. And I have no problem putting that on online. I have no problem putting out my inspiration, drawings and Pinterest pages and music that I loved or things like that. Because if a reader wants to come and find out that information, they can go to my website and blog, or they can follow me on social media. And at that point, they already want to find out more about me. So I'm not inserting myself and saying, by the way, this is what I mean, and strong-arming it. But at the same time, if I didn't do that, other people would be defining my work for me, and I wouldn't have any voice in it at all. And I think, especially with the internet the way it is, I at least want to be able to be clear about what I'm writing and why I'm writing it, even if people aren't listening to me right now, if that makes any sense. Okay, so authors and reviewer spaces. And I've kind of addressed most of this, like I said, it's intersecting multiple places. But this is kind of my last little rant, and then I am definitely going to go name all my chapters. Never, by the way, write titles for your chapters at the beginning of a trilogy. You will regret it by book 3. That is my little writing tidbit. Okay, so authors and reviewer spaces. So, I can't even read my own writing. Okay, so my first thing, most of this is coming from author to author perspective, and I apologize if you are a reader or viewer only and watching this later, but hopefully you're still getting something out of it. I'm trying to make it equal for both readers and reviewers and authors so that everyone can kind of get their opinion. But yeah, so I'm coming up on my 4th year. On the 23rd, it'll be my 4th anniversary of my first published book. So I'm definitely not an expert. I'm not selling millions of copies. I have a small but wonderful, very lovely readership that I prize deeply and dearly. They're wonderful people, and I love interacting with them. But there are probably wiser people out there and more successful, definitely, people out there. If you want, like, basically what I'm saying is don't go 100% on me. I'm just one voice in many. So my first suggestion is specifically to authors. Allow readers to come to you. Don't go to them. And that's not to say you can't watch like YouTube videos or even sometimes comment on YouTube videos. And I'll talk to that later about my own personal opinion and how I handle review spaces. That's not to say you can't go watch reviews and you can't go look on your Goodreads page and you can't go look on your Amazon page. But that's not a good place to voice your opinion. So for me, I've created, and part of this is because I'm an indie author, I don't have a publisher as a go-between for me. And this complicates things because I can't have my publisher go give review copies to reviewers. I do that personally. Like, I have gone to YouTubers and said, would you be willing to review my book? I will provide an ebook or a paperback or audiobook. And by the way, if you're a YouTuber, small booktuber or big booktuber, I don't care, and you want to review my books, please, please, please email me, and most times I will be very happy to send you a book. But point being and all that, I have to go make those interactions and connections myself. I don't have a publisher as a go-between. So often then when reviewers are reviewing those things, they're going to send me an email or they're going to tag me on social media. And for me then not to reply to that would be rude, in my opinion. And I'll go into that a little bit more later. But it would be rude for me to offer someone a book and for them to put in the effort and review it for me, and then to get back to me and say, by the way, the review is up, and for me not to watch it and respond to it, whether that's a positive or a negative review. Like, it would be rude of me to do that. That's not a problem that most traditional authors have. So especially if you're a traditional author, I wouldn't suggest that. Most times traditional authors, although this is happening more and more, especially with small publishers, but most times traditional authors have agents and publicists and publishers who are doing these sorts of things for them. And in that case, like, even if someone tags you, you just don't need to. You didn't initiate anything, you don't need to follow it up. But so yeah, this is why I've created spaces in which I interact with my readers. So I have a Discord channel, I have a coffee, I have a newsletter, and those are areas in which I encourage discourse between my readers and myself. And as those things continue, I'd love for those to get to a place where, like, for instance, if my Discord got large enough and had avid enough readership, that readers would be able to go on there and connect with other readers and talk about my books. And I would just step back and stay away so they can say what they want to say without the author coming in and saying, oh, I love that you love my book, and now read all these ones and talk about how awesome I am. Because sometimes I feel like I'm doing that. But like I said, my Discord readers are incredible. I love my Discord community. I love my readers in general. I love getting emails and comments and messages and Twitter and stuff like that. So as an author, what I'd encourage is for you to allow readers to come to you. Abigail says they're pretty awesome. Yes, they are. She's one of them. And she's left a variety of notes here. I'm not entirely sure which ones I've read out yet, so I'll look at them later. Thank you for commenting and interacting, Abigail. I love you. So yeah, as I was saying, I've created spaces for my readers to interact with me, and that's partially a marketing thing, and that's partially because I want my readers to be able to connect with my work and to be able to also connect with me as a person and not completely disengage my books from me as an author. So I want them to have that choice if they want to do that. They don't have to pursue me. They don't have to come onto my Discord, but I want the option to be available because I know there are readers who love to interact with their authors and ask things like, you know, how often does my favorite character brush their teeth? I don't have avid fans like that yet. That would be incredible. But yeah, so create spaces as an author, create spaces where it's safe for you to interact with viewers. And for reviewers, like if you're craving that interaction with authors, I can almost 100% guarantee you that if there is a living author who has a way for you to contact them, that they would be eager to hear about your perspective on their book. They would be very happy to answer questions. Like if you sent me a question clarifying it, and I've had this from readers before, and I love it when readers have sent me questions saying this didn't make sense to me, or I want to know more about his, like the relationship between these two. Why did it work out the way it did? Or are you intending to write more in this world once this series is done? I love those questions and I love answering those. And the most authors are going to be the same way. And if they're not, that is they're missing out on something very valuable there. But so don't wait for our author to come comment on your YouTube video. You don't have to. And that's not to say that that's a bad way to do it or that you're wrong for doing it that way. Like if an author comments on your YouTube video or your Instagram post or whatever, and you start up a dialogue with them, that's awesome. It's and you enjoy that. Specifically, if you enjoy that, that's great. If you don't enjoy it, it's not so awesome. But most authors, because like I said, there is that danger for them in encroaching into spaces in which they're not welcome. Most authors are not going to go in that direction and should not go in that direction. But for you, if you want that interaction with the author, reach out and connect with them. I hope that made sense. I feel like I talked about that way too long. So, I guess I'm kind of close with how I handle things personally. Now, this is not the optimal or the perfect way. This is just what I found works for me when interacting with my readers and reviewers. And it will probably change as I continue to grow and mature. I'm sure I'm making a few mistakes. I probably have made mistakes in the past. I've probably made people uncomfortable in the past. I apologize if I have made you uncomfortable. Please let me know and I'll be able to change. But this is what I found works for me right now as a very small indie author. So right now I have very clear rules about spaces that are very clearly reviewer only. So like on a reviewer's blog, I don't comment on a reviewer's blog or like a reviewer's blog. I don't hunt down blogs or review posts on the internet. I don't like or comment on any Goodreads reviews, even if they're friends of mine or authors I know. And I've even had people approach me and be like, why didn't you like that Goodreads post? And I've just told them, just because I don't want people on Goodreads to feel as if they have an author looking over their shoulder while they're reading that person's book. I never want it to feel like that. So I don't comment. I probably at some point will get off Goodreads altogether. I don't spend a ton of time on there. And I've grown more of a distaste for it because I feel like it's just not built very well for author interaction. And so I don't like the pressure to have to read more books in a year. I don't like the pressure to have to leave a certain kind of comment or to read all the other nasty comments on books that I'm reading. So I'll probably at some point get off Goodreads. And that's not to say anyone else should. Like, I'm not disparaging the platform itself. I just feel like it's not a space in which I want to continue to be in for long. For now, up to this point in my career, it's been helpful. But at some point, I'll probably just stop going on there. I less and less go on there these days anyways. So yes, I don't like or comment on Instagram posts, but if someone on Twitter, who I'm a Twitter friend with, for instance, shares on their Twitter that they have made that Goodreads post, sometimes I will like that Twitter post, especially if they're already a friend of mine and they know that I'm going to be seeing it. Because like if I was a larger author and had more of a following, or if reviews weren't so important to me, I probably would not do this. And I even question whether I need to stop now. But it is helpful to be able to retweet that on my Twitter and just say thank you for the review. Now I'm very careful to not respond to what's in the review at all. So for instance, if someone tags me in a review and they have mostly positive feedback, but they have a negative point, I'm never going to address that negative point, ever. I'll just retweet it and say thank you. Sometimes I used to say like, thank you for the amazing review. Or, this is an amazing review from so-and-so. Sometimes I'll still do that, like if I want to attract readers' attention to it. But I avoid doing that too, because then that way someone feels like, okay, this one got an amazing review and this one got an amazing review, but my review post isn't amazing. So clearly she was hurt by it or whatever. So I try to avoid that. Now, when I say that, I think I'm, and this is my first time, I guess, kind of announcing this, is I'm very seriously considering leaving Twitter as an author platform within the year. I just don't feel like it's very useful for me as an author, because most of the people I interact with are other authors and writers. A lot of them are people that I have connections with outside of Twitter. And I just feel like it's a really bad platform for selling books. And I want to treat my time as valuable. So I want to focus on smaller, more personal platforms, and then a few specific platforms that have been working okay for me. So that being said, the way I treat reviews on Twitter will change, because I'm probably going to be off Twitter in the near future. Very near future. So yes. And yes, Abigail is leaving incredible comments as I'm going on, just like talking. She says they're important questions. Yes, I'm not entirely sure what that's referring to, because it was probably made a while ago, but all the questions are important. So yes, Goodreads, blogs, I will retweet them. I will sometimes share them on social media. I will not comment on them. I will not like them on the platform they're on, even if I'm tagged in them. And if I'm tagged in a negative review, which has not happened very often, I will either ignore it or I'll just retweet it with like thanks for the review, thanks for reading. So the other thing that I'm intentional about is creating reviewer spaces where I can interact with reviewers, like my newsletter and my Discord. So I already talked about that. So as far as things like Instagram posts and YouTube and stuff, which are not so clearly reader platforms. So I've not yet, because I'm not a big enough author, I've not yet had anyone, like I've never run across a booktube where the booktuber just like randomly hauls my book and is like, I'm really excited about reading this one. I've never had that happen. If that happened and I was not tagged in it, I would not comment on it. I might like it, but probably wouldn't because I wouldn't want them to feel spied on. Like I wouldn't want them to feel like I'm just like looking around BookTube trying to figure out who's reading my book. And as soon as I do, like jump on them and be like, you're awesome and give me a good review and I'll give you lots of likes and comments. I don't want that to happen. If I'm going to connect with a reader who I want to review my book, I put a lot of time and effort into watching their BookTube channel first, interacting with them first on a as a viewer. So I'll comment, I'll like, I'll watch, and I'll probably subscribe because I want to get to know them and their taste as a person. And I also want to get to know how they respond to indie authors and how they respond to people just like out of the blue messaging them and saying, I'll give you a free book. Like a lot of booktubers, especially bigger booktubers, get so much of that they don't want that kind of interaction. So I try to be cognizant and thoughtful of that. Now, for those channels that I do send requests to and ask if they want to read my books, often they will tag me in the reviews. I very rarely had a chance where they haven't tagged me or somehow like message it. Like I can't think of maybe one where they haven't tagged me or messaged me or in some way mentioned the review. And in those situations, like I would probably like it and say thank you on their post, but I, wouldn't go any further than that. For the people who do tag me, I just try to express my thanks, not comment on what the review was, but just express my thanks. And if it's a really great review, and so far I've only had really great reviews from people I've reached out to. If it's a really great review, I just thank them profusely for the great review. Like they tag me, they initiated the I guess I initiated the interaction, but they were clear that they wanted me to see their review. Now I've kind of stopped sending out reviewer copies in that way, like cold messaging people, and I've kind of kept my eye open for other people who could do that too. But for me, it just felt a little bit uncomfortable because it felt like, and I do feel like some reviewers kind of expressed an added pressure to create a good review or to get the books read on time. And I don't want my books ever to be associated with any kind of discomfort, like that they have to be read at a certain time or before a certain time, or that I will be angry if I send them paperback copies and they don't read them or review them. I want people to enjoy my books, and I want people to read them because they enjoy them. I don't want people to get a hold of my books and feel discomfort before they ever open it and feel pressure before they ever open it. And I do feel like there's been some people who've expressed, not in a negative way, but as if they felt that pressure from me. So I don't know if I'm going to continue doing that after this trilogy. I have a few people who I might reach out to for the end of the trilogy because I think it's only fair that if I give them the first few books free and they enjoyed it and they enjoyed our interaction, then I will give them the rest of the series for free so that they can, review it if they feel inclined to. But I don't know if I'm going to continue with that direction. But I do have a street team which I'm developing of people who get onto a newsletter with me. Abigail says you're welcome. Who get onto a newsletter, and I will send them free copies of books as they come out. There is some expectation for review because I don't want to just keep sending out free books to everybody, and they're almost always going to be be ebooks or maybe a few audiobooks. So like right now I have some codes for audiobooks. If anyone is interested in an audiobook actually of Malfunction, and you guys listen on Kobo, let me know and I might have a code available. But that's a side note. Oh yes, I was going to. So I have that place for people to pursue free copies from me. And if a reviewer reaches out to me and asks for a free copy, I will almost always agree to it. It's especially if I don't usually send out free paperbacks, but especially for ebooks, it's like no cost to me. Maybe they would have bought it otherwise, but most times if people are reaching out to me like that, it's because they would not have bought it otherwise. So if it's a small YouTuber or a book blogger or something like that who they wouldn't have been able to afford it, or they're interested in it but not interested enough in it to spend their hard-earned money, but they're willing to offer a review from me, whether it be on a sales platform or on a blog post or YouTube. Like for me, I'm a new author. I want to get my name out there. I'm very, very willing to give people free ebooks for that. So I think that's different from going up to someone and saying, would you review my book if I give you a copy? And while I don't think that's a negative tactic or a bad tactic, I don't know if I'm going to continue that tactic because, yeah, I don't know. It's just slightly uncomfortable. So yeah, anyways, that is my current way of handling things. I kept this going. I don't even know how long I kept this going. It's been like an hour, 46 minutes. I talk so much. But if anyone has any questions, I guess specifically Abigail, because she's still here. She says, thanks for sharing. Abigail's awesome. She always hangs out on my streams. So Abigail, if you have any questions or if anyone else has any questions, like feel free to leave a comment. I don't know how long I'll keep this up. I might change my mind and be like, well, why did I do that? But probably not. Also, my husband's getting louder. But any questions? I'll give you a couple minutes, like 1 minute. I think not. I want to go back and look at some of Abigail's comments here too and read those out. I think there's one here that I like, longer one that I didn't get to read. She says, it's so easy to hide behind a username or persona. And then she says, something that many people forget is that we as a reading and writing community are actually working together to make those spheres a better place. And when we tear each other down, we damage the community as a whole. That's so true. Like this creative community, like we need each other. And sure, there's a million books out there, so readers could probably maintain for a good long time if all the authors in the world just suddenly disappeared. But we need each other, and we are creating culture and creating quality together, not apart. So thank you for being part of that, either as an author or a reviewer. Like that, at either side of those, even just reading, even if you're not reviewing it, you're just reading it. Thank you. You are giving your time and that's a part of your life to create something bigger and outside of yourself. And that's a powerful thing. So thank you for that. And Abigail says, will you be using something else instead of Twitter eventually? So for my current marketing plans, Abigail says, little support is still support, yes. So for specifically my marketing plans, I would like to be on a few more reader spaces. And when I say that, not reviewer spaces, reader spaces being, I don't want to just be selling my books to other authors. So I'm looking at doing more paid ads. And then I really want to focus on creating quality content on my Ko-fi account, and my newsletter, and on my Discord community. Those are the three areas where I want to focus the most because I feel like I've built up a bit of a readership and a bit of a collection of people who enjoy my works. And I want to put the majority of my very limited effort into making their interest in me worthwhile. Like for me, that's a huge gift that they've given me, to have given me added interest and to have taken the time to sign up for my Discord or give me their email. Like those are, they may seem like small sacrifices, but at the same time, like that's what makes an author's career is one or two people who care enough to go beyond just, maybe I'll pick that up and leave it in my Kindle for 100 years, which if you do, hey, thank you for the interest. But that's where the majority of my focus is going to be. So as far as like interacting on just normal social media, I will still have my Facebook page, although I'll probably only be posting on there maybe once or twice a week instead of trying to do, because I pulled back a lot this year anyways, trying to do every day. And I'm not really focusing on that. That's more of just like having a presence. And then also Instagram. I haven't been very consistent on Instagram, but I enjoy the community. I enjoy like having the pictures, seeing the pictures. And I enjoy that I can post something and I'm not like, thank you, Kat. I'm not needing to like constantly interact with people there because like with Twitter, if you post something on Twitter, like you'll just see it continue pop and there's like majority, it's a little bit different on Instagram. Like I can post something and leave it there and it accrue likes and comments. And I don't feel the same pressure as I would with Twitter and Facebook and stuff to check it right away and interact with people right away. So I'm keeping Instagram for now. There's my cat again, I'm sorry. And possibly moving away from that in the future. But for now, it seems like the only place that's worthwhile. That being said, I really don't like the way that Instagram is run as a company. I feel like they're really invasive. So I don't support them as a platform because of that. But sometimes you have to play by rules you don't agree with in marketing. But yeah, I would rather focus on one-on-one personal interactions with the Discord newsletter coffee. And then maybe at some point I'll do a little bit more with my YouTube. But I have, like I said, I have very limited time. I want to spend most of it writing and interacting with the readers that I do have. So I should probably get off now. So you don't continue hearing my husband ranting about cars and bikes. But yes, if you have watched this far for this hour of me discussing stuff out of nowhere and just popping out of outer space and being like, by the way, I'm going to just put my voice in so I don't have to write. Thank you. I would love to hear your thoughts and your opinions and if you disagree with me or agree with me. But I'm very grateful for you, reader or author. Your voices are important, so thank you. But that's it for now. Bye. I'm going to go work on my book.